Hello. It's been a minute, as always. I hope all of your winters are passing nicely and cozily. Here in Copenhagen, we've had a lot of snow and some very seriously cold days recently. Today we are talking about more floor plans, layouts, and space plans, and how thinking like an interior designer can fix or rather elevate floor plans drawn by an architect. Again, architects, we love you, but way too often you guys create floor plans that just overlook how the interior space that people will actually live in will function. I really thought almost none of you would be interested in this type of video. I almost didn't even make the last one because I thought it was kind of a bad idea. But to my surprise, you guys really liked it. A lot of you requested more, so we're doing more. Let's not waste any time and dive into the first plan. And our first plan is for a lovely villa in Mexico, a short walk to the beach in southern tropical Mexico. So different from Copenhagen. This building site is on a relatively urban street with no particular views in any direction. So the architect has done something really nice, in my opinion, designing the ground level of this home as a sort of indoor-outdoor, almost courtyard space with a pool that actually spans from the back garden into the living space. On the street side of this house, off of this bedroom, there's also a really nice use of a sort of private, walled-off courtyard that I really love. So in general, I think the relationship between interior and exterior here is really interesting and working really well. And upstairs there are 2 more bedrooms, one of which is the primary suite. And if we take these stairs another level up, they lead to a rooftop deck for even more outdoor space and a view to the beach, I believe. Now, to be clear, this is a new build in the early phases of the design process, so we have a lot of freedom to play with this plan while maintaining the general concept and flow between the spaces, which the client is generally happy with. So diving right in, without mincing any words, this plan has quite a few immediate red flags that catch my eye. Just for the sake of keeping my thoughts organized, I'm gonna walk through these sequentially as one would walk through the house. So first, starting with this entrance, it's extremely crowded and dense in multiple ways. They've drawn this really large 150 centimeter door, which I think can be very cool, but the edge of the kitchen is right up against it. It's extremely tight. I don't know anything about architectural code in Mexico, but I can tell you that a wall this deep right next to a door handle is definitely a problem. It's not comfortable to open a door that's set into a corner like that. So first things first, I think we pair this large door with a window, whether it's fully transparent or translucent in some way for privacy. This gives us some clearance and also an opportunity for a bit more daylight from the front of the house. But the entrance still feels extremely crowded for a villa this size, in my opinion, because you're immediately greeted by this tall island that's blocking you from the rest of the space. And combined with a dining table, how it's shown, we basically have these 3 paths to get across the space. One is through the kitchen, where people might be cooking, which is not ideal. 2 is between the island bar stools and dining chairs, which I think has potential to feel very crowded with all of these seats backing up into it. And 3 is this very skinny space between the pool and the dining table, which is way too close for comfort, in my opinion. This dining chair would feel a little dangerous to sit in, I think. And I guess there's a 4th option of going all the way around the pool, but let's not be ridiculous. But I just want to put a pin in that thought on circulation for a second. We're going to rework these elements to get a better spatial flow, but first, there's a major space planning crime happening right before our eyes. Actually, they've done it twice. Can you guys see it already? I feel like it's shouting. From the kitchen, you can see two toilets if these bathroom doors are left open. Now, in my opinion, in a new build, that is just an unacceptable situation to have, and it can always be resolved. So take this bathroom on the left, for example. We're just going to mirror the whole plan of it, including where the door is, so we don't have to worry about those sight lines anymore. I would also recommend slightly extending this wall next to the front door, just so this bedroom and bathroom feel a bit more private and removed from the social space out here. And it's pretty clear that this bathroom is meant to be used by these 2 bedrooms, not guests. So if you're having a party and somebody asks where the bathroom is, I think the idea is that you would send them to this powder room past the kitchen. So all the more reason to sort of tuck this bathroom away from the main living space. And in general, with the mentality of separating these bedrooms as more private spaces, I might recommend a flooring material change and potentially a lower ceiling height here, just to really emphasize that this wall is the edge of the open space and beyond it is sort of a separate zone. In general, I think it's nice when bedrooms have a slightly lower ceiling height than open living spaces. It helps them feel a bit more cozy. And now moving on to the other bathroom, which also has a direct sightline to the toilet. This is also an easy fix. I want to mirror this plan as well, but actually this whole sort of hallway situation with the powder room and sort of storage mechanical room back here, rather than having this kind of awkward L-shaped room, I think we can just tighten that up and slightly shrink the powder room, which is already a little bit oversized. And then if we flip where the hallway is, we can extend this kitchen all the way down this wall. So we have a nice sort of hallway reveal in the corner of this open space. Whenever we want a space to feel large and expansive, like this one clearly wants to, it's really nice if we can eliminate any corners where 2 long walls meet like this. It just visually makes a space feel way larger. So now we have this nice linear kitchen that isn't crowding the front door so much. And I want to come back to this thought about the island and dining table, particularly how they relate to this very cool sort of sunken living room conversation pit moment. Now, a seating area, any seating area, is inherently lower than a dining area, right? Sofas are shorter than dining chairs and tables. But a sunken conversation pit like this obviously takes that to a total extreme. You can see right over it. So just thinking about spatial masses and sight lines, I really want this seating area to be the center of our open plan. I want to take advantage of the fact that you can see right across it and have it be one of the first things you're faced with when you enter the house. You'll have this like sweeping open view over the conversation pit and over the pool, which should be extremely nice. And that original kitchen island was way too long. So we're going to keep a more reasonably sized island right down here at the end of the kitchen with a dining table parallel to it, just like it was before. But now there's not a huge need for circulation between these elements. It's really just to get to the powder room back there, so it's not really a problem. And a final tweak here that now feels obvious with the new layout would just be to pull the pool over a little bit to align with the edge of the kitchen on one end and the edge of the conversation pit on the other. That sort of establishes this clean, thoughtful grid in our design. And unsurprisingly, I would let that same mentality guide the layout of my kitchen. I would probably keep all of our tall storage, the pantry, the fridge, maybe even the oven here. And then we would have the actual kitchen counter start here, aligned with that same edge. It will all just feel very tidy and nice. And one last tweak here. This was probably honestly more of like a drafting typo, so to speak, but the door to this bedroom is swinging the wrong way. A door should open up facing into a room, not facing the wall. It just doesn't feel very comfortable. So what do we think? Is there anything else on this level that's sort of shouting at you guys? These changes to me really just feel like taking a breath of air. The space feels so much more calm and ordered, which is something I really love to achieve. But we're not done with this villa because there are a few matters to address upstairs as well. But I want to pause the conversation here just for a quick second to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Rayon Design, which is the drafting software that I use for all of my design projects and also what I use to draw all the plans that we're looking at today. I've told you guys about Rayon before. What I really love about it is it's such a clean and effortless CAD platform. Between my design education in university and my work experience working in different architecture firms and also independently as a designer, I have become fluent in many different architectural softwares. And in my opinion, Rayon is super unique because it's very approachable and user-friendly, but it's smart and capable at the same time. You can use it to either build complete drawing sets or just sketch quick ideas. It's great for anyone who wants to create, document, or present their work in one organized place, whether you're a design hobbyist who just wants to play around with your renovation layout or a serious architecture firm. One thing that really sets Rayon apart is its block library. There are so many options to choose from, blocks that have top, side, and front views, which is super nice for a drafting workflow. All of their blocks are, of course, customizable, and some of them are even parametric. And you can create your own blocks by either importing DWG files or even vendor PDFs, which is super nice. Or you can generate them with photo prompts using Rayon's built-in AI panel. This is really one of the coolest features in Rayon. It allows you to do things like create 3D axonometric views from your 2D drawings. It's super cool to play around with. And because Rayon is web-based, it can support real-time collaboration with a team. Everything updates live, which can save so many headaches. Basically, Rayon keeps up with your creative process while saving you so much time. No matter your level of experience with architecture and design softwares, I genuinely recommend checking it out. You can create a free account with Rayon right now by using the link down in my description. And thank you again to Rayon for sponsoring today's video. Okay, back to our plans. So moving upstairs, in general, I think all 4 of the bedrooms in this house are planned pretty nicely. I really like that they all have the entrance on a side wall past the foot of the bed. Big thumbs up there. This smaller bedroom upstairs though is really quite small because if you think about it, we're squeezing a bedroom and bathroom into the same footprint as the downstairs bedroom just below it. So honestly, I think a closet like this just isn't really going to work here. In general, both the bedrooms downstairs have really generous closets, which is awesome, but I am going to recommend that we think a bit more strategically here with our square meters. Rather than having a full wall of wardrobe, we can shrink our shower to be a square. A 90 by 90 centimeter square will fit just fine here. And then we can actually embed a small full height closet into the wall here. And 90 centimeters is a fine length of closet for such a small bedroom. I would just pair it with a dresser here opposite the bed. And then I would say we have adequate storage space and a much more comfortable amount of floor space. Depending on the bed frame, I think we could even fit a 180 mattress without it feeling ridiculously close to the window or the closet. And there's another sort of drafting typo here, I think. This door should swing in to the bedroom. Just as a general rule of thumb for any of you that might be wondering, it always feels more natural for a door to swing into a room, not out into a hallway or an open space. Okay, and finally moving on to the primary suite. I have to be honest, the proportion of this room compared to the walk-in closet just really rubs me the wrong way. That closet is way out of scale. And there's no need for the closet to open up onto the bed like that when we have so much space along this hallway already committed to circulation. So what we're going to do is pull back that primary bedroom door toward the stairs and also make this closet a much more reasonable size for this size of bedroom and frankly for the size of this home. Because the other thing about walk-in closets is that corners in closets often become very clunky and just an inefficient use of space. Much like kitchens, closets are much nicer when they prioritize linear space so that you can actually face and access all of the storage. So what I would recommend here is a proper 60 centimeter deep wardrobe on one side of the closet for hanging clothes. And on the opposite side, I would actually have like a 40 or even 30 centimeter deep storage solution with shelves and drawers. This gives us 2.5 linear meters of proper closet for hanging clothes, paired with drawers and shelves on the other side, which are a really efficient way to store clothes that you don't necessarily want to hang on hangers. So this walk-in closet is a lot smaller now, but I would actually argue that it's a more efficient use of space than the sort of U-shaped closet that was presented before. And that leaves us with a much more respectable, large primary bedroom, which just feels more appropriate, I think. I think those are all of my thoughts on this plan. I don't think I missed anything. I'm excited to share this one with you guys because it really just feels like a refined, elevated version of the original plan in a way that I'm really happy with. It totally keeps the same concept, which is one that I really love. The pool stretching all the way into that open living space is so cool, in my opinion. And I think with these changes, we just made it work that much better. Okay, on to the next house. So this was another very fun consultation. It's also a new build in the US this time. This was for a client that is building a little dream home for herself on this absolutely beautiful site. There are amazing views in basically every direction. And this was the plan that she brought to our consultation. But the general idea was to keep the house relatively closed to the north, which is where the driveway is located, and further in the distance you can see the street. So the house is relatively oriented to the south, which has the most expansive, impressive view. The client was planning to use this room in the northeast corner as a guest room, but she wants it to be ready to rent out in the future in case she decides that's something she wants to do. So it needs a separate entrance, its own bathroom, and probably some sort of small space that could be fitted out to be a sort of kitchenette unit in the future. Then this other bedroom is the primary, and it has this space that's planned as an office, but ready to be fitted out with a sort of Murphy bed situation for guests in case the other proper guest room is being rented out in the future. That's why there's this sort of unconventional double entrance to the bathroom here. So basically this plan needs to be very adaptable and suit a very specific vision. One other important thing to note here is that while this is a new build, our consultation came at a time that was relatively far along in the design process. So her architects were really encouraging her to keep within this rectangular footprint and roof line. Okay, so what do we see here? Can you guys guess which issues stood out to me first? I feel like I'm on like a children's show when I ask questions like that. Like this is like Blue's Clues or Dora the Explorer or something. Okay, so my initial thought looking at this plan was the entry sequence and really just the lack of any sort of architectural definition here. This transition from exterior driveway into this open living space is just so blunt and harsh. I feel like I've said this nearly a million times on my channel now, but so much of spatial design and architecture is thinking about transitions. It's really just about the relationship between different zones. And this current plan is frankly unsatisfactory in that department. We just have this flat wall with an entrance randomly punched into it. There's no hierarchy or definition or anything of architectural value here. In general, it just feels like this living space is currently planned about as thoughtfully as a unit in a large apartment complex. It feels very under thought through. It doesn't look like a thoughtfully designed dream home located on this beautiful natural site. And a huge part of that is because there's no architectural emphasis or push and pull of masses happening. So thinking about this very blunt transition, a really great way to sort of slow down and emphasize a transition and create more of a feeling of privacy is to design a circulation path with a break, a sort of forced turn, if you will. You'll notice that this open space is not planned very efficiently. We'll obviously get to that, but I want to point out that we have plenty of square feet to play with on this sort of north-south axis. So what I recommended was, within the same roofline and foundation footprint, to actually dedicate some space here to a sort of covered front porch. We can have a post out here to keep that visual corner of the house and maintain the same roof line. But this allows us to orient the front entrance at a 90-degree angle to the porch, which just feels way more comfortable because you're sort of implying these two new zones on either side of the door, which makes the whole transition from outdoor driveway to indoor living space feel much more gradual and soft. Now when somebody comes to your door, they're not getting a 180-degree view of your entire main living space. We actually have this sort of almost vestibule type space here. This also does a really nice job of calling out an architectural feature at the front of the house. Before, it was just this flat wall with two random doors on it. Now with this porch, we have a clear main entrance to the house that you feel like you're supposed to approach. And the exterior materials and landscaping can take it even further to really emphasize that. And actually the original plan for this house was to have a sort of asymmetrical gabled roof, which I really loved because it worked really nicely with the site and sort of the slope of the landscape. So with this new porch carved out, I recommended that we move the pitch slightly north to be aligned with this new wall, so it just feels structurally cohesive from the outside. Also, this open living space is intended to have a vaulted ceiling, so it'll make sense from the interior as well. And speaking of the living space, let's resolve this a little bit, shall we? First things first, we interestingly have a very similar circulation situation to the other house that we just spoke about, where we're forced to choose a path between these tall rectangular masses, right? The kitchen island, and the dining table. So to prevent it from feeling too crowded, we can just rotate this dining table and bring it a little closer to that west-facing window. So now that path of travel is clear of any seats that might get in the way. Also now every seat at this table can enjoy the view out the window, so it just makes more sense like this. And I really have no idea why this kitchen is protruding 7 inches out from the wall. I don't think there's any reason or justification for that here, so let's just tuck that back in. In fact, we're not tight for space in any of these back bedrooms or bathrooms, so I'm going to suggest that we pull a few inches from each room in order to gain an additional foot in the living area. So it will feel a bit more square and spacious and less narrow. And continuing to make way for a nice path of travel, they've drawn this island as a standard 2-foot deep counter, but there are no stools and no appliances in this island, which means we can actually get away with a slightly more narrow island. 18 inches or even as low as like 14 or 15 inches in some cases can still feel like a super nice prep space in a kitchen this size. So if we allocate 3 feet between kitchen counter and island, and then an 18-inch island, we're left with well over 3 feet between the island and dining table. This is really important because we want people coming into this home to naturally walk on this side of the island, not through the kitchen. Also, I really love how this new wall of the front entry sort of frames in the dining table. Centering a table on a nice big piece of art on that wall will just look really nice. And as always with the kitchen, we want to plan it so it feels aligned with the architecture. So I'm going to recommend that we move our tall element, which is the fridge, to be aligned with that new wall and the pitch in our vaulted ceiling. That should feel really nice and intentional. It is a little strange to have your fridge so close to your front door, I think, but we spoke about it and we agreed that in a house this size, it's a sacrifice that feels okay. I do think that having an integrated fridge with a cabinet front will help this feel a little less unusual. And then we can have our sink and dishwasher down at the end of the kitchen here so that the dishwasher doesn't disturb the workflow while it's open. I also think it would be nice if the island were long enough to sort of contain the sink and the range. So when you're at either of these two stations, it feels like you're inside the kitchen, not sort of like halfway out of it. Does that make sense? And then just to finish off this open space, I think it would be nice if this wall feels completely straight with the kitchen embedded into it. So rather than have some sort of bookshelf or media unit or whatever this was meant to be protruding here, I'm going to suggest that we flip that to the opposite wall on the west side of the house. This also helps to better define the difference between the dining area with a big transparent window and the seating area, which will have a more sort of massive bookshelf storage situation on this wall. Just a nice sort of distinction to imply some zones in this open space. I also really want to move that back door to the backyard out of the office and into the main living space. I just think it makes more sense functionally, especially because this office room might sometimes be used as a guest room. So we can put a nice glass door in the corner of the living room here, which will align really nicely with our kitchen work zone. And a door here, especially if we pair it with the right sized rug, it can sort of imply this buffer zone between the living room and that office wall, which I think will feel nice and balanced. The living room will feel a bit more comfortable, like it's in this corner between the bookshelf and the window and not spanning this whole room. I hope that makes sense. It might just be kind of an intuitive thing. I'm trying to think of how to explain that, but with the bookshelf on one side, we don't want the furniture to be too close to that office wall. We want it to feel like the living room has a home in this sort of corner here. Does that all make sense? What do we think so far of the main area? I think the proportions and flow between the entry, kitchen, dining, and living are just working way better now. Okay, and moving on to the guest suite. It generally feels pretty fine to me. However, I don't think there's any reason for this bathroom to be as long as it is. I think we can just kind of tighten that up so that we have a cleaner area to play with on the primary suite side of that wall. The main change I would suggest in the guest bedroom is moving that exterior entrance to open into the hallway rather than right into the bedroom. Because if this is functioning as a sort of separate little rental suite, then it's a much smoother transition from outside into this hallway. It can almost act as like a little mini foyer. And speaking of this door, I really want to go back to that idea of maintaining hierarchy from the exterior. On the front side of that house, I would recommend potentially cladding this guest suite door in the same material as the exterior siding, or at the very least painting it a similar color. And then we can have the walls of that main patio clad in a contrasting material, all just to maintain and emphasize that visual hierarchy when you approach the house. Also, because there's no window in this bathroom, I would consider putting a window here, just opposite that pocket door, just to get some daylight and fresh air as close as we can there. And in the bedroom, one more pretty minor note, but thinking about that asymmetric pitch to the roof line, I would recommend that the windows in the guest room sort of relate to that in a way. Maybe that looks like having 3 separate window panes here, and then one mullion could be aligned to the pitch of that roof, and the other could be roughly aligned with the hallway door, actually. I know it might seem like I'm obsessed with aligning things, but it really does elevate a space. This way we're not just randomly punching a hole in that elevation. We've actually given it some thought to how it will work in the whole composition. And in this guest room, we did donate a bit of area to the main living space. So I think to make room for a functional closet here, we'll need to opt for a sort of smaller stool or table in place of a nightstand. And then if need be, this desk area here could be turned into a little kitchenette if desired sometime down the line. And while we're talking about the soft furnishings, there's absolutely room in this corner for a nice little armchair that you can sit in to enjoy the view. And with that, I think this room starts to feel like a nicely designed guest suite and not just like a bed in a room. And moving on to the primary suite, I really like the idea of using pocket doors to save space at a smaller home like this, especially if somebody's living here alone and there's no huge need for privacy. It can be really nice to live with pocket doors open. It makes everything feel more spacious. So right off the bat, I would give this office a pocket door as well, align it with the bedroom pocket door, and then punctuate that sort of axis with a nice window at the end. So if both of these doors are actually left open, you get a nice little view and some daylight all the way from the living room, which is kind of cool. And because we've moved that back door out of the office, I think that can just become a nice window. Then we don't need to worry about the desk chair or any sort of fold down bed blocking a circulation path there. Okay, now let's talk about the primary bath situation. I think this laundry, toilet, shower sequence just isn't totally working. First of all, this house doesn't have like a garage or any sort of extra storage space. And the kitchen is relatively small. So I think a proper laundry room is definitely called for here, where we can store things like cleaning supplies, a broom, a vacuum, you know, things of that nature. And we have the space for more than just a stacked washer dryer closet opening straight into the office. So let's carve out a little laundry room here. Then we have a proper place for a hamper, supply storage, maybe even a nice little place to fold your clothes. And then through that, we can have the guest entry to the bathroom. Now, a pocket door to the laundry room here is definitely an option, but I kind of feel like there's just a huge amount of pocket doors going on. So I think if this is a thoughtfully designed laundry room with nice millwork and everything, then we can actually just leave this as an open threshold. But again, if we're concerned about laundry noise, especially with the office right there, a door is also an option. Maybe like a glass door though. I really want daylight to reach this room. Okay, and moving on, I hope some of you learned your lesson from the previous villa we spoke about and you're shouting at your screens because we currently have direct eye contact from our bed to the toilet if these doors are left open. Again, nobody needs that energy, especially in a new build. And this is a super quick fix. Again, we're just gonna flip this whole bathroom around. You see how easy that is? I flip bathrooms to improve sightlines probably once or twice a week in my space plan consultations. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I do it a lot. A surprising amount of floor plans out there really need that fix. And obviously this means we need to get rid of the linen closet that was in the shower, but to be totally honest, I don't think that was necessary. Between the storage in the office and laundry room and the bathroom vanity, and obviously the primary bedroom closet, I think there are ample storage opportunities here. I would much rather prioritize clean sightlines over an extra little closet like that. Okay, I think those are all of my notes. I don't think I'm missing anything. So let's do a quick little before and after to see all the changes. I found this one to be particularly satisfying, so I hope you guys found it just as fun as I did. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Again, it's amazing for me that you guys liked this kind of video as much as you did. I know that I speak on behalf of a community of interior designers when I say that architects often make some pretty frustrating oversights in their space plans that interior designers then have to deal with when we're brought onto a project later, or even if we're starting a new renovation project, we're still working within the set architectural constraints of a building. So if you are currently working with an architect on plans for a new build, go hire an interior designer to consult with right now. You can hire me if you want. Shameless plug. I do offer remote design consultations. You can email me for more details about that. But genuinely, whether it's me or someone else, it's never too soon to start prioritizing the interior in your design. Anyway, I have so many plans that I've edited for clients in my consultations, and I'm very excited to keep sharing them with you guys. So I've actually decided to make this a little mini series over the next few weeks. I'm going to be filming 3 of these floor plan videos and releasing them right in a row. And the next one should actually be up next Sunday, if all goes according to plan. So stay tuned for that. And yes, thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel if you aren't already, and I'll see you next week. Bye.